The following is a highlight from Rejuvenation with Harrow on Voice of Israel.
Hi, everybody. This is Harrow, host of Rejuvenation on Voice of Israel. Today is April 26, 2015, the 7th day of the Yar, 5775. And I'm very happy to have in studio with me at the beginning of this beautiful week Tzruya, Medad, Luzon, and Naor, both attorneys with the Movement for Quality Government. And Tzruya is also the legal advisor. So thank you both for coming in.
Thank you for having
to our
us.
studios here in Jerusalem to deal with a very painful issue. It would be nice, this is a non-government organization that you both work for. It'd be nice if we didn't have the need for that. If politics and government was so clean and wonderful in Israel that it was just the light into the nations as we all aspire to be. Unfortunately, we're working towards that, but we've got a little bit ways to go. And the work that the two of you are doing and your organization is doing is, it's almost embarrassing that it has to be done when you guys, when the things you do are in the headlines, but it's really the only way to fix it. So just before we start with the work that you're doing right now, maybe Tzruya, a little bit on the organization itself.
Well, the organization was founded 25 years ago by a young attorney named Shraga, who was disgusted from the situation in the Knesset and decided to fight it. First, he went on a hunger strike, and then he understood that as a attorney, he wasn't an attorney then, an internship, but he understood that he has power to actually fight on two levels, on a more legal level, petitioning the Supreme Court, and on a civil level with the demonstrations and the media, and making a change in the society to bring up better norms of how we expect our leaders to behave and how we expect the whole
system.
The whole system, to function.
So that's 25 years ago. That's 1990.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell me, what's going on in 1990? It's hard to remember.
Then we had the
big...
kicked
this off.
Yeah, there was the big, we called it Hatargil HaMasriach. There was a big coalition crisis back then between Shamir and Peres.
Right, it's like Shamir.
Yeah, they
Shimon
signed
Peres.
those coalition agreements between them, and then they didn't publish them to the public. And there was a lot of media noise around it, but no one really knows what's in those agreements. And actually, one of the first appealings to the Supreme Court, I think the first one, who made by the movement, was a simple transparency act of just show us, the public, what was written in those agreements, something that you and I today see it as, as just a normal thing. Back in those days, the people back home had no idea what's going on in this big Knesset place, or what the people are talking about. The funny thing is that one of the next big acts that the movement did in 1993 had something to do with what happens today, and that was appealing against the continuance of Aryeh Deri as a minister in the government. Back then, he was in charge of taking bribe. We know what happened next, and we see also.
Well, so my listeners don't know what happened next. So let's explain a little bit. Aryeh Deri, the head at the time of the Shas Party.
Back then, the head of Shas, a young meteor. He was only 29 at the time.
Right, big star.
Yeah, and he was charged in taking bribery money as a minister of foreign affairs, of internal affairs. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah. What we call
into the Ministry of Interior.
Yeah, Ministry of Interior.
Right.
And as Tzruya says, based on norm of good governments back at the time, it seems normal to everybody. Who was the prime minister back then was Yitzhak Rabin, and it seems normal to everybody that the minister in the Israeli government that is charged in taking bribe money will stay as minister.
But it's like part of the job. Like you get into the job and you can be bribed to do things for other people.
As long as you weren't convicted.
Yeah,
as long as you weren't convicted.
And the movement actually appealed to the Supreme Court.
Your movement.
Our movement, of course. The High Court of Justice. And we got a ruling, a very interesting ruling, first at the time, that says that the minister that had criminal charges against him cannot stay as minister. Now the interesting thing is, well, and then Aryeh Deri left home. We all know we
he went
know.
to he went to jail.
He went home at the time. He stayed as a parliament member, as a Chavrei Knesset, for another 6 years.
So he lost his position as a minister, but
Yeah.
he kept his seat as a member of Knesset.
For
but
another
he wasn't.
6 years, he wasn't
Okay.
he wasn't allowed to be a minister.
Okay.
In 1999, he was convicted. He went
For bribery.
Yeah, for bribery. He went to jail for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
About 4 years ago, he announced of his big return to the Israeli politic. He re-elected as a Knesset member in 2013, and he was elected to be stand in the head of Shas. And now he elected, and he actually is going to go into the coalition, into the government. In a very interesting, Israel, we're going to have a convicted criminal in bribery, by the way, that never show regret for anything he did.
Well, he's actually denied that he did it. He said it was a kind of witch hunt.
Exactly.
Right.
And
He doesn't take responsibility for what he did.
Mm-hmm. And now, I think it's like putting a pedophile into a kindergarten again.
I'll have to agree with you on it.
There's tremendous. It's one of the biggest budgets in all of the Israeli ministries, the Ministry of Interior, and he's going to be in charge of it.
He's going to be in charge, and we're going to go again to court, and we're going to hope that the Supreme Court we're going to support us again, and we're going to support the public actually, because what we do is for the public good. We believe, and that's one interesting thing is as Tzruya mentioned before. One of the movement goals is to set norms. Since Aryeh Deri courts, and there was no one minister that was charged in criminal acts that actually stayed in his position. There's no law against it, but Olmert, Hanegbi, Lieberman, none of them stayed in his position as minister after they got charged in criminal acts. Sharon left as well.
Mm-hmm. His son, yes.
No, his son is a different story. And we think that one of the main things we do as a movement actually is to bring to the public even the idea of we can have a better government, we can have a better elected governors. What seems to be normal about 25, 30 years ago, it doesn't seem normal to you anymore. It doesn't seem normal to our sons. To the next generation, such as a minister who sits in government and be in charge for criminal
acts.
So
just the fact that people are upset that he has a chance of being minister again is a good thing. It shows that you've raised an awareness in the Israeli public that we don't have to put up with politicians are just thieves.
Exactly.
That we deserve something better. I just want to fill in a little bit of background for my listeners who might not be aware. Shas is the Sephardi party, and I hate using the term Sephardi,
ultra-Orthodox,
but it's an ultra-Orthodox party made up of many people Jews who were thrown out of the Arab world in the early 50s and who are half of Israel's population. And then we have the Ashkenazim, people with more European background. And then we have a big mishmash because a lot of people here have an Ashkenazi father and a Sephardi mother, and it doesn't really matter anymore. However, what they have done to kind of catapult themselves into the Israeli political scene is play that kind of ethnic card to a great degree. Now, within the politics, there's an internal politics of Shas. And the rabbi, the leader and founder of the party, Rav Ovadia Yosef, passed away last year. And there's been a lot of internal jockeying in the party for position. And so it wasn't necessarily so easy for Deri to come back, but he has. Another thing, because I think a lot of the listeners, the Israeli political system, perhaps Tzruya will get into a little bit, the fact that we're a parliamentary democracy. We talk a lot about Israel being a democracy, and I know all of us want it to stay so. But democracies are not all the same. The kind of democratic system, the checks and balances that we have, for example, in the United States, is not what we have here. We have a 120-seat legislative branch, which is voted on by the people, although by lists, not by individuals. And then we have a Supreme Court, which is where you guys are busy. And the Supreme Court is supposed to kind of check the legislative, but there are people who will say it's gotten a little too active, that it will overturn even laws. That's a whole other discussion that the Knesset has passed. But one of the things that I felt was interesting about Israel's Supreme Court is that anybody can bring a case before the Supreme Court, which is not the same.
That's very unique in Israel.
Yes, so maybe explain that a little.
In the United States, you have to show standing, the right for standing. You have to have a personal case to bring into court, and the Supreme Court will choose between the cases that brought it in front of him what cases they're going to try. Mm-hmm. In Israel, again at the early 90s, the Supreme Court said if you have a public interest and it's important enough, you don't have to show personal standing. And that's how...
what does personal standing mean?
Personal standing means that you as an individual were harmed by a decision of the state of and what we do, we petition cases that have to do with the public interest and not with a personal interest, which is unique. It's not very common in democracies that you can try a public petition.
So this is actually a very good thing about Israel.
We think that it's very good. Of course, for the government, it can make things difficult, because that means that their actions can be checked and can be overruled. And there's a lot of
for good and for bad.
For good and for bad, yeah. So there is it's controversy in Israel, and we find it very important when it comes to corruption. Of course, there isn't a individual that can show standing, that has interest. The public are hurt. The public are the ones who are gonna suffer. And that's why we think that it's important that we can try cases like that in front of Supreme Court. And that means that if there are situations where the public is losing either because Deri can be a prime minister, a minister, or because there are lands that are transferred to
public lands that are transferred
to personal hands without
without the process.
Without the process, or
without the due process.
Without due process, exactly.
So there isn't a specific person who can show standing, but the public is going to be.
And that's where your movement comes in, the movement for quality government. This is Eve Harrow with Tomer and Tzruya. We're going out for a short break, and then we'll be right back, because sadly, there's more to talk about. Rejuvenation, we'll be right back.
Steven Spielberg Jewish Film Archive presents
The New World War has added terrific economic strains. Labor and money intended for developing the country and giving security to its people are now being diverted to the war. 65,000 Jews have registered for war service. And should hostilities extend into the Mediterranean, the flower of Palestine youth will be fighting on the fields of Zion. These will indeed be happy people in a happy land. In flight from Europe, refugees have gone to the ends of the earth.
We are here about 200 persons, and we hope to go someday to Palestine and to begin there a new life in our homeland.
That was a VOI History Moment.
And you were there.
This is Eve Harrow, a Voice of Israel show host, and in my spare time, a licensed Israeli tour guide. Jerusalem's German colony, the Sharona in Tel Aviv, and other neighborhoods in Haifa and elsewhere were built in the 19th century by a group of Protestant evangelical Christian Germans called Templars. Their purpose was to prepare the land of Israel for the eventual consummation of their religious eschatological beliefs. With the advent of World War II in 1939, however, the British, who controlled the area as part of their Mandate of Palestine, looked askance at the flying of enemy Nazi flags and deported most Templars to Australia. In the 1940s, they were exchanged for British subjects who had been interned by Germany to concentration and death camps when other countries that they were in were conquered. The price of the beautiful Templar homes that we see inhabited today were deducted by the German government from reparations paid to Israel as a result of the Holocaust. This is Eve Harrow for Voice of Israel. Hi, everybody. Eve Harrow, continuing my talk with Tzruya, Medad, Luzon, and Tomer Naor, attorneys in the movement for quality government. We've spoken in the last few minutes about the court and how this all works, and unfortunately about some very pressing cases that we have now, especially as the government is under formation. But let me ask you, each of you, how does this work exactly? Like, there's something, it's in the headlines, or you see that something is wrong. do you work with the police? Because in many of these cases, there's obviously a police case that's being opened. I mean, Derry goes to jail because he's convicted in a court, and first the police have to bring evidence. So you're working with the police as well. Do they come to you? Do you come to them? Tomer, how does that work?
Yeah, I'll say, first of all, we are not dealing with criminal law. Basically, we're dealing with the public law. So everything that goes with criminal law, the police is doing their job better than us. The DA office probably doing his job better than us. Many times we raise the problem to them. We write them the letters. We set the complaints.
Something here stinks.
We ask the police. We ask the DA. Hey, look at it. We have the evidence. We have the people who are willing to speak. We have the whistleblowers that are willing to speak. Come and do something. We go many times to the state controller and ask them to take a step into it and check our evidence, check our claims. As you said, we're an NGO, a low budget, by the way, NGO.
Everything is donations?
Everything is donation. We refuse to take money from the government.
That makes sense.
Of course, as an obvious. We're highly in chase for the next donation. By the way, if your audience can hear us, no, I'm just saying. But what I'm saying is that we're depending on the media many times.
Right.
Also, we have a hotline that goes, I think it's received, and Tzruya, you can help me, about 2,000 calls a year from people that are saying, look, I live in my neighborhood, I see something, I know something. Many things are in the municipality level that people knows about things that are going in, like the mayor, one of the municipality council members, they're doing wrong.
It's not just at the Knesset level that you deal on, and even the municipal level.
Exactly, and I said that most of the high-profile cases we're dealing with that goes from the media, many times are coming from the media and are in the Knesset. But many of our cases that you'll never hear about them are in the municipality, or we have a municipality project. Many of the people who live in Israel are suffering from bad governments many times as a result of the fact that the mayors in Israel, the municipality in Israel, has a lot of power. They're elected. They're elected for many years, many times. We don't have a law that, as in the States, for example,
like a limited term.
That limited the term for 2 cadentions. So we have mayors that are 20, 25 years, and those people have a lot of power to do whatever they want.
Right.
And the media, or the central media, just doesn't care many times. And those people are calling us many times, something small that I can do. Just sending a letter can change some person in Arad or in the south or in the north life even.
Right.
So, and that's for me a shlichut many times.
Right, it's a mission.
It's a mission.
Well, you mentioned whistleblowers.
I mentioned whistleblowers.
So that has to be, and that's a very brave thing to do, to write a letter and say, my mayor or somebody. And look, Israel also, we have criminals and we have people who, especially if a lot of money is at stake, wouldn't maybe stop even think of doing personal harm, let alone ruin someone's reputation. How do you protect, or can you protect the whistleblowers?
The case of whistleblowers is a very interesting case in Israel. Just for our audience, I'll say that about 20, 25 years ago, this whole concept of whistleblowers were, there was a code of silence. We had actually a president that called them snitches, like stinker is the word in Yiddish for it.
Right.
You will say, I'll support no whistleblower, of course. There's a code of silence, you should protect your friends, cover up for each other. Exactly. We see a breakthrough in the last couple of years. The audience in Israel is realizing that whistleblowing is an act of honor, is not an act of shame. As you said, there's 2 kinds of protections. First of them is in the labor court, which is we don't deal with that as much as we want to, unfortunately, because
that they shouldn't lose their job.
They shouldn't lose their job. We wish we had the more manpower and the more budget to deal with those things. We're hoping to do it in the next couple of years. Many times, we help the whistleblowers with the state controller actually in Israel is ombudsman as well. That's the word I was looking for. The state controller in Israel is the ombudsman as well, and he can protect whistleblowers against getting fired. There is an act of defense that the state controller can write and to keep them in their jobs until the process in the court of labor will get a result. Many times we are the people who represent, the movement are representing those people in the state controller office, in the ombudsman office, and we see results. We see results. Many times they get an act of defense, they stay in their jobs. Our audience can check online in our website. There's a list of people who we helped in the last couple of years. it's not enough, unfortunately. It's not enough.
So, Tzruya, let me ask you, let's say someone's listening and they know that there's something wrong in their municipality or even on a higher level. What steps would they take now?
First of all, they have to protect themselves, and it's not wise to go out and
put it on Facebook.
Identify yourself as the whistleblower.
We see people doing it, unfortunately.
Really, yeah.
The right thing to do is to get advice. I mean, we'd be very
from
happy
you.
to help them, from us or from people that they're close to enforcement, like the police or the comptroller.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is to do it in a smart way, because you really want the corruption that you're complaining about to be checked out and to be taken care
Maybe
of.
It's not true,
and,
right?
And you want to protect your position at work.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is not to try to just get attention. The idea is to make it work, and to make it work in a way that you won't be fired and won't be attacked. So we try to give these people advice and to help them and to bring in the complaints, sometimes not in their name. Like we'd bring the information, or we'd bring the information in their name. And
where do you? Let's say you have a website. They would go into your website, call you the number.
Yeah, well, we have a website, and people write to us and bring us the information.
Okay.
And what we try to do is to make sure that they don't suffer from this very important act that's essential for fighting corruption.
Mm-hmm.
And there are different. It depends on the case. We'll see what is the right. What's the right person to get to and to bring the information to, and to see how it can be resolved.
So maybe this is a stupid question, but let's even define corruption. Is corruption always money? Is corruption always bribes? Or, for example, there's a case that's been out for the last few months that the police have taken advantage of some of the women underneath them. Okay, like in a sexual sense. That is not money changing hands. That's an abuse of power. Okay, maybe she gets a better position, better job, whatever it is. Is that considered corruption? Is that something you would be involved with?
It's a very good question, because the legislator, the Knesset, is actually asking the same question as we speak. The law in Israel says shchitut. Shchitut is a corruption.
Right.
As you say, many people are complaining against even like the wrong process taking place, sexual harassment, any wrong behavior in the place of working, and then they come to the court, and the court says, "I'm sorry, it's not a corruption by law."
Right.
As you say, and we actually, and we didn't mention it before, but we are not only playing, our playground is not only the Supreme Court, we also have people in the Knesset that help changing the law.
So that's my next question. Do you have legislation now making its way through the Knesset, or is this a case of, like the fox watching the hen house? Can you actually get laws passed through the Knesset to stop corruption in the Knesset? You're counting on the majority of people in the Knesset being the good guys.
There's a lot of very good parliament Knesset members that helping us changing the law, changing the definition of what shchitut is, of what corruption is. We're working on it. There was supposed to be a law of act in the last Knesset, but everything, as you know,
new elections and everything went on hold.
So now we're waiting on it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is anything else? I mean, there's the dairy case. What do you think your chances are here in keeping him from becoming interior minister? I wish my listeners could see the rueful smiles on both your faces.
I'll say we're in a very fragile time for Supreme Court in Israel. Unfortunately, we want to say Supreme Court judges are strong enough to deal with the external noise.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're hoping that's kind of the things that you never thought you're going to go to the Supreme Court with.
Right.
No one can tell what's going to happen.
No one can tell.
I think that one of the main goal and actually achievements as a movement, I'll say as a civil movement, not only a legal movement, is the fact that people in the street are talking about it. So even if we won't get, God forbid, or if we won't get the Supreme Court ruling, the fact that more than 50,000 people already signed our petition against hiring dairy again, that people are talking about it in the street, in the taxi,
you've made noise. You've changed.
We made noise. We changed the way people think.
You're changing the dialogue.
I think that today in Israel, those elections, as a difference from other elections, weren't only about the cost of living and Iran and whatever.
Right.
It was, for the first time, I think, about corruption. And people here are starting to think, those people, I gave them the power to rule. They should use this power gently. They should use this power with high carefully and with responsibility. And
well, there's this idea of public service, which is that you're a politician, you're in a place to serve the public, not to be served by the public.
And I think that now people are getting it, and that's a huge, I think.
That in itself is a huge success.
A huge success for us, yeah.
Thank you so much, Tzruya Medad Luzon, the legal advisor for the Movement for Quality Government, and Tomer Naor, an attorney with the same. And good luck. Your success is all our success. We deserve a better Israel and better politicians, and we really appreciate what you're doing. Thank you so much. This is Eve Harrow, Rejuvenation, April 26, 2015. We'll be right back, so don't go away.
Voice of Israel, your source for news and views on everything Israel.